So, welcome to Marshall-Lerner conditions and the J-curve. This video follows from the previous video when we said that a depreciation or devaluation of the exchange rate of a country like the United Kingdom could result in an improvement in the balance of payments current account. However, this depends upon the price elasticity of demand. So for that to take place, for the improvement to take place, you need to follow Marshall-Lerner conditions, which are that the combined price elasticity of demand for exports and imports must be greater than 1, must be elastic, in other words. And the reason for this is because the balance of payments current account is really a measure of value of exports, which is price times quantity, minus the value of imports, which is price times quantity of imports. So really what we want to, the situation you want is total revenue to go up and total expenditure to fall on imports. So it's price times quantity we're looking at. So imagine we don't meet Marshall-Lerner conditions, and imagine the price, say, falls 10% for our exports, but we only export 1% more. Our total revenue then is going to fall, isn't it? And therefore the balance of payments current account will deteriorate. Same with prices. If the price of imports increases 10%, but we only import 1% less, because we're addicted to those imports, and it's inelastic in demand, then the total expenditure, of course, is going to increase, and then that'll worsen the balance of payments. So what we want is this situation here, Marshall-Lerner conditions, where the demand for imports and exports is elastic. So if the price falls, say, 10%, the quantity demanded for exports increases by more than 10%, say 15%, and then the total revenue will increase. And the price of imports increases 10%, say the quantity of imports falls by more than 10%, say 15%, then the total expenditure is going to fall and the balance of payments will improve. So that's simply what we mean by this important rule here, the Marshall-Lerner condition. Now, to illustrate this in a graph, we can look at it over time, which is what the J-curve does. And then what we assume about the J-curve, which is crucial, is in the short run, in terms of time, okay, then we're assuming that the PD will be inelastic. And in the long run, yeah, it will become elastic. Okay, now the reason for this is, as you know from your work on elasticity, that elasticity tends in the short run to be inelastic. People have inertia, they don't change purchasing decisions. So it becomes more elastic over time. Another reason is obviously a lot of imports and exports are based on contracts, and when the exchange rate suddenly changes, it takes time to change those contracts. So to start off with, guess what? The balance of payments current account, as I illustrated at the start, will actually worsen, okay, contrary to what you might expect, because the PD is inelastic and the quantities aren't changing, although the prices are. However, after a certain time, it becomes more long run, then obviously the PDs become elastic, become more elastic, and then the balance of payments current account will improve. That is simply called the J-curve effect. Now you can see it in the statistics. When Britain ignominiously came out of the exchange rate mechanism and the pound fell or crashed, a lot of people called it Black Wednesday in the early 90s in the UK, but the Sun newspaper called it White Wednesday. They didn't like the EU too much. So what happened then was actually, after a short initial period, suddenly the balance of payments current account of the UK did improve. Now the opposite can occur, which we actually call the inverse J-curve, or indeed the reverse J-curve. So we take this J-curve, just switch it round, and look at the opposite way. So if we start off with a surplus on the balance of payments, which can be a problem, and we have a devaluation, we have an appreciation of the currency becomes stronger rather than weaker, or an appreciation of the currency what will happen is that balance of payments initially worsen because it's elastic to start with. Sorry, it's inelastic to start with, so it's inelastic here. And then it becomes elastic in the long run, and therefore the balance of payments will deteriorate. Okay, so we've got the inverse J curve for an appreciation or a revaluation where the currency strengthens, and the J curve here, you can see if you switch it around it becomes a J, the J curve for a devaluation or depreciation of the currency. And remember Marshall Lerner conditions. Hope that's useful. Thank you very much.